The first time Eli Mercer saw her again, she was standing in the pale morning dust outside the Mercer Ranch cookhouse door, fingers trembling against the frayed edge of her shawl. The rising sun painted her silhouette gold, but the rest of her looked like life had chewed her up and left her softer, smaller, humbler than the Stormite girl he remembered, and her voice thin, cracked, almost afraid, barely carried across the quiet yard. "Sir, I'm looking for work. I heard you might need help in the kitchen." A strange, heavy breath pushed through Eli's chest, the kind that comes when a man sees a ghost he never buried right. Nobody came up this road unless they needed something bad. Nobody looked that desperate unless the world had already slammed every other door. But let's go back to where it really started, before her voice shook, before her eyes carried shame, before Eli Mercer ever thought he could want anything more than a ranch that kept his hands too busy to feel loneliness. 4 years earlier, the prairie around his land was greener, younger, same as him. Eli was 22, restless as any ranch boy trying to prove himself, but too honest to pretend he didn't see hunger in the eyes of travelers who wandered by. He grew up knowing that mercy was a kind of quiet strength, gentler than the gun he kept under the saddle, but twice as dangerous if used wrong. That summer afternoon, he'd found her by the well, young, bright barefoot, cheeks pink from the sun, tasting laughter like it was something she was born knowing how to do. Her name was Liza Thorne. Everybody in town said she was trouble in a pretty dress, but not the bad kind. The aching kind? The kind that made boys forget sense, and men forget they weren't boys anymore. Their first conversation lasted 3 minutes. It changed 5 years of his life. "You always draw water like it owes you an apology," she'd teased, watching him haul up the bucket like it weighed less than a bag of dry feathers. "You always watch strangers like you're fixing to judge 'em," he'd answered, half smiling. "I ain't judging," she said, "just thinking." "'Bout what?" "'Bout how a man with hands that steady might not need much else. Maybe not even a cook." She grinned, mischievous, warm, maybe just a wife. He didn't know how she saw so fast into the part of him he tried to keep quiet. Maybe she didn't seem, maybe she guessed, but she was right. Eli didn't need a cook. He needed someone who looked at him like she'd just discovered a reason to stay in one place. But dreams break fastest in men who hold them too close, because the next month, Liza was gone, swept up by a man with money, promises a fine house close to the river. Town folks whispered he owned half the freight line coming through Kansas, that he bought her things no one in this county could afford. They said Liza had sprinted toward luxury like it was her God-given destiny. Eli never contradicted them. What was one broken heart against the weight of town gossip? But some nights, alone on the porch, he wondered if she'd chosen wealth, or if she'd simply chosen not to grow poor alongside him. Time moved. Cattle died, calves were born, storms rolled in and out. The ranch survived. Eli did too, mostly. The hurt dulled, settled like dust into the cracks of him. He learned to talk less, trust slower, work harder. That was the kind of healing a quiet man earned. Until this morning. Until she appeared again, thin, pale, clutching that shawl like she was, praying it could hide whatever shame she carried from that mansion she'd once run toward. Liza Thorne was standing on his land asking for a job in his kitchen, as if fate was daring him to reopen a wound he'd spent years stitching shut. Eli leaned a shoulder against the doorway, jaw tight, his hat casting a shadow across the eyes he didn't want her to read. "You're asking for kitchen work," he said quietly, "but that ain't what you came for." She lifted her face just enough for him to see the truth swimming in her eyes. Not hunger, not pride, something closer to desperation, something closer to home. "I'll take any work you give," she whispered. "I don't got anywhere else to go." Eli studied her a long, aching moment, her shaking fingers, her worn shoes, the way she didn't dare look him fully in the eye. There's easier ways to ask for help, he murmured. She swallowed hard. I'm not looking for easy. The wind paused, holding its breath with them. Eli's next words broke, the air like a slow crack in old timber. You asked for a kitchen job. His voice dropped, rough, honest, in the way it had been years ago. But truth is, Liza, I always needed a wife more than a cook. Her eyes widened, her breath hitched, in the quiet Kansas. Morning felt suddenly heavy, with old choices returning like ghosts, finally demanding to be faced. The silence that followed hung so long between them that even the horses by the fence turned their ears toward it. Eli hadn't meant for the words to slip out that plain, that bare. But something about seeing her thin, trembling, stripped of all the bright, reckless confidence she once carried, had pulled honesty straight out of him like a thorn he'd buried years ago. Liza didn't breathe for a moment. Her fingers knotted together, her shoulders tightening beneath the faded shawl. Eli. Her voice cracked. Don't say things like that. Not now. Why not now? He asked, steady but quiet. Because you don't mean it. He held her eyes until she looked away first. I don't say things I don't mean. She took a step back, shame rushing into her like cold wind. I didn't come to reopen anything. I came because I'm hungry, because I've been turned away from every ranch on this side of the county, because folks don't want trouble in their kitchens. In your trouble now? He asked. She flinched. He regretted the sharpness instantly. Before either of them spoke again, the screen door creaked as someone stepped out. Old May Caldwell, Eli's neighbor, cook by trade, rebel by nature, stood with a wooden spoon in hand, like it was some kind of badge of authority. May had been listening. She always listened. Well, she said, scanning Liza from head to toe. That's Thorne's girl, ain't it? Liza tensed. Not anymore. May's eyes narrowed. I heard your husband's ridden south. Heard he left debts thicker than summer flies. Heard he left you to carry M alone. The hit was clean and merciless. May wasn't cruel, but she had no patience for pretending. Liza swallowed hard. People talk, 'cause it's true, May replied. Eli shot her a look, but May only shrugged. You brought her here, Eli. You don't bring a wounded pup into your yard and act surprised when it whimpers. Liza's shoulders shook not with anger, but humiliation she'd been trying to hide. I don't want pity, she whispered. May snorted. Good. Eli don't have any to give. The tension crawled over the yard like a slow-moving fire. Somewhere in the barn, a horse stomped nervously, picking up on the weight in the air. May, Eli said, rubbing his jaw. Give us a minute. No, May answered. You're thinking with your heart, and hearts don't belong in hurrying decisions. Mines do. She tapped her spoon on her palm. If she works here, the town's gonna talk. They'll say you're letting your past walk right back into your bed. Or worst, they'll say you're fool enough to rescue a woman who already chose better once. Liza's breath hitched like May had sliced something inside her. Eli took a slow step forward. May, that's enough. But, Liza shook her head. No, she's right. They will talk. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. Liza Thorne never cried easily. And they'll say I deserve every bit of it. May studied her more carefully now, as if weighing the truth sitting behind her ribs. Liza pursed her lips, took in a breath that trembled, and forced herself to speak. My husband didn't just leave, she said quietly. He left because of me, because I wouldn't entertain the men he owed. She lifted her chin with a fragile kind of pride. So he handed me the debt and rode south. Took every coin, every horse, every scrap of food. May's expression softened first. Eli's jaw clenched so tight he tasted metal. That why you came here? he asked carefully. I came here, Liza said, because you were the only good thing I ever ran from, and the only man I thought might not slam a door in my face. For a long moment, nobody breathed. Then the crunch of wagon wheels sounded from down the road, slow, hesitant, watching. Eli turned just enough to see two ranchers from the neighboring property sitting high on their buckboard, staring openly at the scene. Their whispers drifted across the dry air. That's the Thorn woman. Mercer's talking her in. Boy's making a fool of himself. Just like that, rumors were already spreading. May muttered a curse under her breath. See? Not even 5 minutes, and the town's beginning its sermon. Liza clasped her hands tight, shame crawling hot up her neck. Eli stood still for a heartbeat, then took a long breath through his nose, slow and deep, like a man arriving at a decision he knew would cost him. He stepped beside her, close enough that those wagon men could see it clear as scripture. If she works here, he said, voice firm, then she works for me, and anyone with a problem can bring it to my face. The wagon men stiffened, exchanged a look, and kept rolling down the road. May stared at him, eyes wide. You really gonna take her in? After everything? Eli didn't look away from Liza. Yeah, he said. I am. Liz's breath trembled, part relief, part fear of what this choice meant for both of them. Because, in the Old West, helping someone you ain't supposed to help didn't come free. It came with consequences sharp as barbed wire. And those consequences were already on their way. The trouble didn't arrive like a storm. It arrived like a whisper. The kind that crawls under doors and slips through curtains, long before men hear it spoken aloud. By sundown, Eli could feel it pressing around the ranch, like a weight on the lungs. It started with the dogs. They paced the yard in stiff, uneasy circles, noses up, ears twitching at something too distant for human ears. The cattle kept drifting toward the far fence line, bunching together as if seeking safety. Even the wind, usually loud across the Kansas prairie, moved with a strange, watchful quiet. Liza was inside the cookhouse, washing tin plates under May's instruction, sleeves rolled up to her elbows. She didn't speak unless spoken to. That wasn't her nature, but it was what shame had sculpted her into. Eli stood outside the doorway, arms crossed, eyes pinned on the horizon. He hadn't worked a single chore since morning. Every hour, he walked the perimeter and returned with his jaw more tightly set. May finally snapped. You're wearing a path in my dirt, boy. Sit down before you scare the girls stiff. Eli didn't move. Something's coomin'. May huffed. Something's always comin'. Not like this. Liza paused her washing. Is it because of me? His silence was answer enough. She lowered her eyes. What are people saying? She asked quietly. May wiped her hands on her apron. That you brought shame back into this valley. That Eli Mercer's letting a married woman work under his roof. That her husband might not like hearin' she's taken refuge with an old sweetheart. Liza froze mid-breath. Eli stiffened. He ain't coomin'. Man who rides out on his wife don't come riding back for her. May shook her head. Boy, you ain't listening. It ain't your girl's husband folks are worried about. The air shifted. Something deeper, darker, moved across Eli's face. Debt collectors, he murmured. Liza's hands trembled so hard, the tin plate slipped and clattered into the wash basin. Eli, I didn't mean for that trouble to follow me here. Doesn't matter, he said. It's here. As if summoned by his words. A new sound drifted across the plains, slow at first, barely more than a pulse. Hoofbeats, far away, but steady, purposeful. May's spoon clattered against the counter. Lord help us. Eli stepped outside, boots crunching over hard dirt. The sky was bleeding orange behind sharp black silhouettes in the distance. Riders. 3, then 5, then more. Moving with the confidence of men who didn't need to hide behind laws to get what they wanted. Debt hunters. Lone enforcers. Trouble-wearing hats. Liza stepped to the doorway, her face pale as bone. They're here for me. Eli didn't turn. They're on my land. That makes it my problem now. The riders drew closer, tense shadows against the dying sun. No one rushed. No one yelled. That was the kind of threat that scared him most. The calm kind. The kind that knew its business and didn't come to negotiate. Liza's voice was barely more than breath. If they think I'm hiding here, Eli, they'll burn this place down. He finally turned to her. I won't hand you over. You don't have to hand me over, she whispered. They'll take me. Eli stepped closer. Close enough she saw the flecks of gold in his eyes she used to tease him about when she was younger and braver. Not while I'm standing. May moved behind Liza, gripping her shoulders. Girl, you stay inside. If they see your face too quick, this turns ugly faster than a rattler's strike. Out on the road, the riders slowed. Their horses snorted clouds of dust. No torches, no guns raised. Just men sitting high in their saddles, staring down the ranch with the kind of patience that made a body sweat. One man rode a little ahead of the others. Dark vest, cold eyes, a cigarette burning lazy between his fingers. Eli Mercer, he called, voice smooth as poisoned honey. We're looking for a woman named Liza Thorne. Inside the doorway, Liza choked on her breath. May held her tighter. Eli didn't flinch. You're trespassing. The leader smiled without warmth. Then show her to us, and we'll ride out peaceful. Eli's jaw hardened. You ain't talking her. A slow exhale, a flick of ash to the dirt. A shift of saddles behind the leader. Quiet but unmistakable. Men readying themselves. Son, the leader said softly. Don't make a choice you can't unmake. Liza slipped out from May's grasp, voice breaking as it reached Eli's back. Eli, please, don't do this for me. He didn't look at her. He didn't look anywhere except straight ahead, into the eyes of the men who brought fear with them like dust on their coats. You want her, Eli said, voice low, calm, deadly steady. You'll have to come through me. The prairie held its breath. The riders stared back. And the quiet standoff settled in like a frost before dawn. Merciless and impossible to walk away from without a wound. The standoff lasted so long that even the horses seemed unsure whether to breathe. Dust hung in the air like a suspended question. The lead rider's cigarette burned low, the ember glowing soft in the early dark. No one moved. No one dared, until Liza did. She stepped forward slow, cautious. Each footfall as soft as regret out from behind May's trembling hands. Eli stiffened, but she shook her head gently, asking him with her eyes not to speak. The riders shifted. A few hands drifted closer to holstered revolvers. Liza's voice trembled when she spoke. You don't need him in this. The leader leaned forward just slightly, studying her. There she is. Liza Thorne, breathin' still. I'll be honest, darlin', didn't think we'd find you looking half alive. Liza didn't flinch, not visibly, but her fingers curled tight in the fabric of her skirt. You can tell Mr. Fallon I'll pay what's owed, she said, just not all at once. A low chuckle rolled through the riders like a ripple. The leader smiled, slow and patronizing. Girl, you ain't got a penny to your name. We checked your shack, emptier than a preacher's whiskey cabinet. May muttered something sharp under her breath. Liza swallowed. I'll work. I'll earn it back. I work. The leader laughed again, though it wasn't a sound made for joy. You think Fallon's interested in coin from you? He wanted collateral. His gaze slid to her face with something colder than lust. Ain't no kitchen job gonna settle his tabs? Eli stepped beside her before she could answer, placing himself half astride in front of her. You're done talking to her? The leader's eyes narrowed. That's so. It is ain't your business, boy. It is now. The other riders shifted again, uneasy though, not afraid. Men like that rarely felt fear, but something else moved through them. Annoyance, calculation, the sense that this wasn't going as cleanly as they liked. Liza touched Eli's arm, her voice shaking. Stop, please. He turned his head enough to see her, but not enough to invite hesitation. His voice softened. You don't owe them your dignity. I owe them something, she whispered. Not this. Her eyes glistened not with the fear these men inspired, but with something quieter and far more devastating. Memory. The memory of choices she regretted. The memory of hurting the one man who never raised a hand to her. The memory of walking away from goodness, only to return to it broken. She exhaled shakily. Eli, I did this. Let me fix it. He shook his head. I'm not letting you walk into hell again just to satisfy men who don't know what mercy is. The lead rider smirked at June. Realty. But whether she walks in or gets dragged in, Fallon gets what he wants. His tone sharpened. Move aside. Eli's hand hovered near his holster, not quite grabbing it, but close enough to whisper a promise. Liza saw it. May saw it. The horses felt it. But the lead rider simply narrowed his eyes and clicked his tongue. Boys, he murmured. Looks like the rancher here thinks he's in a dime novel. Before anything could explode, Liza did something no one expected. She stepped forward again, this time in front of Eli. Her voice cracked but carried. Look at me. The leader raised a brow. Fallon doesn't get to own me, she said. Not anymore. Not ever. You think you got a say? He asked. She nodded. I do. Her fingers trembled, but her spine stayed straight. Because I ain't the same girl who let men like him decide what I was worth. Silence thickened. Eli watched her with something soft breaking inside him. You want collateral, Liza said. Then hear this. I'm not giving you my body, and I sure ain't giving you my freedom. If you want payment, you'll get it through work. Honest work. And if that don't suit Fallon, then he can come himself like a man. The riders murmured. Even the leader blinked. It wasn't a threat, not a scream, just a tired woman standing up for the last piece of pride she had left. The leader studied her a long time before speaking. You got fire, he admitted. Didn't expect that. His gaze shifted to Eli. But this hero here, he ain't gonna like the cost of protecting you. Eli stepped closer, his hand brushing Liza's, not taking it, but letting her feel the steadiness in him. I'll pay whatever cost there is, he said. The leader's smile thinned. Reckon you will? He tipped his hat, turned his horse, and rode off slowly, his men following. Not defeated, not finished, just planning something for later. When their silhouettes finally dissolved into the horizon, the prairie let out a long, trembling breath. Liza sank to the ground, knees giving out. Eli caught her before she fell. She looked up at him through blurred lashes, voice barely a whisper. Why are you doing this for me? He brushed a strand of hair from her face, gentle as the dusk wind. Because you finally stood up for yourself, he said, and I ain't letting you stand alone. A single tear slipped down her cheek, quiet, grateful, breaking open years of regret. And though the night settled peaceful for the moment, they both knew the real reckoning hadn't arrived yet. Dawn crept slow across the prairie, pale light brushing the tops of the grass, like a hand smoothing a child's hair. The world looked peaceful in that first, gentle glow, but Eli felt none of it. He hadn't slept. Neither had Liza, neither had May, though she pretended otherwise, banging pans in the kitchen as though noise alone could keep danger from creeping back to their door. *. Liza sat on the porch steps, wrapped in one of Eli's old blankets, eyes fixed on the horizon where the riders had vanished hours before. Her hair was messy, her face drawn, but something new rested in her posture, a quiet firmness. A woman no longer trying to disappear inside herself. Eli joined her, boots thudding softly on the wooden planks. They'll be back, he said. Not to frighten her, just truth spoken plain, the way the West demanded. I know, she whispered. A soft breeze moved over them. For a moment, neither spoke. Liza finally exhaled. Eli, I never thought I'd come back to you. After what I did, I figured you'd slam the door in my face. Never been good at slamming doors, he murmured. She looked at him, her voice barely steady. I hurt you. He didn't deny it, didn't soften it, didn't let her hide from it. But he didn't turn away either. You did, he said quietly. But you also lived through something most don't walk away from. Ain't my place to judge the roads you took to survive. Her eyes glistened. He made promises. I believed him. I thought money meant safety. Thought comfort meant love. Eli studied the prairie. Sometimes folks only learn the worth of things once they lose M. Silence again, heavy, but no longer painful. Behind them, May stepped out with 2 tin mugs of coffee. Drink up, she said, thrusting them into hands without waiting for thanks. Long day ahead. Fallon's boys don't ride off for good. They circle like wolves, quiet, patient, dumb enough to test a fence twice. Then, she squinted at Liza. You standin' up to M last night. That was something fierce. Her tone softened. Proud of you, girl. Liza lowered her eyes, overwhelmed. May patted her shoulder once, firm. Just don't go fainting if today gets loud. She stomped back inside, pretending not to see the way Liza wiped her eyes. Eli sipped his coffee. You don't have to stay, he said softly. If you want to leave, I'll help you get a wagon. Or a place in town. Or something safe. Liza looked up sharply. Do you want me to leave? He shook his head without hesitation. No. Her lips parted, surprise flickering through her. Then, why offer? Because Stenin should be your choice, he said. Not a trap. Not fear. A choice. Her breath trembled, and she looked down at the mug between her hands. I don't want to run anymore, she whispered. Not from Fallon. Not from what I did. Not from what I feel. Before Eli could speak, a distant rumble shook the morning stillness. Hoofbeats but slower this time. Less threatening. More deliberate. Liza froze. Eli rose to his feet. May burst out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Already? Lord above, can't a woman finish cookin' breakfast before trouble comes knockin'? But the riders approaching were not the same rough silhouettes from the night before. Only one man rode toward them now, tall, older, no hurried threat in his posture. Liza's breath caught. Eli felt her tense beside him. The rider stopped a few yards from the porch, removed his hat, and held it respectfully against his chest. Miss Thorne, he asked gently. Liza nodded hesitantly. My name's Paul Hargree, the man said. I'm Fallon's foreman. Eli's hand rested near his belt. We ain't got interest in scarring you, Hargree continued. Last night's boys. They acted outside orders. He glanced down, ashamed. Fallon heard about it this morning. He dismissed M. Liza blinked. He what? Dismissed, the foreman repeated. Fired, and warned. Mr. Fallon says he doesn't take kindly to men abusing their station. Eli narrowed his eyes. Fallon ain't known for kindness. Hargree sighed. Maybe not, but he's got a wife now, a daughter. Folks change sometimes. He reached into his coat. Liza flinched, until he pulled out a folded paper instead of a weapon. Asterisk your debt, he said softly. Forgiven, wiped clean. Fallon said, he don't want nothing from you. Liza stared as if the paper might vanish in her hands. Why? She whispered. Asterisk because he heard you stood up to his men, Hargreaves said. He respects that. Says anyone brave enough to face down dead hunters with an empty pocket and a steady voice doesn't owe him a damn thing. Asterisk Liza covered her mouth with both hands. A choked sob escaped her, not of pain, but release. Asterisk Hargreaves nodded once, tipped his hat, and rode away without asking for thanks. Asterisk when he disappeared over the ridge. Liza sank onto the porch step again, the paper trembling in her fingers. Asterisk Eli knelt beside her. You're free. Asterisk she looked up at him through tears. I don't want to be just free. Her voice steadied. I want to be yours, if you'll have me. Not because I'm scared or lonely, because I finally know the worth of a heart like yours. Asterisk Eli didn't speak immediately. He just reached out and took her shaking hand in his, slow, gentle, sure. Asterisk, you've always had a place here, he murmured. You just had to find your way home. The sun rose brighter across the fields. The prairie breathed easier. Asterisk, and for the first time in years, Liza did too. Finally she had something worth staying for, and someone worth becoming better for. Asterisk, a quiet ending, a hard beginning, a place to rebuild what life had broken. Asterisk, together.